just imagine. It's a lovely September night in 1947. You are the engineer of a train waiting at a station in Canada. You have orders that you're supposed to wait until another train goes by. Then you may proceed. Soon, you see a train rounding the bend and heading towards you. You know it's supposed to take the siding. However, something is different. The train just keeps getting closer and closer and closer. You realize it's gonna crash into you. You jump out of the train right in time. Sounds unimaginable, don't you think? Well, I'm sorry to say, a train wreck just like this did happen on a September night, 1947. Today is the story of the Dugald Train Accident. It is September 1st, 1947, Labor Day weekend. The last day of summer has arrived, and many children, and many adults too, are traveling home after being on summer break. There is only one means of transportation. That is the Minaki Special, a 13-car passenger train for vacationers of Canada. The Minaki Special is a passenger train built to carry vacationers from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada to northern Ontario. Its schedule is pretty simple, really. Friday, take the passengers to their destination. Sunday night, bring them all home. On this night, September 1st, it is Sunday, so it is the homeward trip. Steam locomotive U1A number 60001 is the locomotive of the train. Her number is actually put into the train itself. Extra passenger 6001 West. Behind 6001 are 2 baggage cars, 9 gas-illuminated wooden cars built in the early 1900s, and right behind them, 2 steel-constructed parlor cars. There are virtually no roads to the areas the train travels, so the Minaki Special is the only way of transportation for these summer vacationers. On this final trip of the season, there will be nothing but unusual this trip. The passengers, which had boarded the train from Reddit to Malachi, have chosen to leave at the very last minute, instead of taking the earlier train. This decision will be the difference between life and death. The engineer of 6001 is Gail Lewis. At the age of 63, he is a few years of retirement, but right now, he's just hoping to finish up the season. However, this would be his final trip. At Malachi, 12-year-old Ian Manson and his father board the train. They were originally going to be in the front of the train, one of the wooden coaches. However, Ian's father had decided to go to the back of the train, the second last coach, which was in fact a parlor car. This was probably the best decision of their lives. Also boarding the train at Malachi was a group of summer campers. 2 coaches had been set aside for them at the front of the train. However, due to the Minaki conductor worrying about the boys disturbing older passengers, they were instead switched to the back of the train. This would save the campers' lives. Gilbert Rougeau is a trainman on board the train. He is supposed to be at the back of the train. On this trip, however, a trainman had fallen ill, so he decided to take command at the front of the train in one of the baggage cars. It will be his fateful decision. As the train stops at many other stations down the line, picking up more passengers, it is put further and further behind schedule. When it leaves Malachi at 7:30 p.m., there are 324 passengers aboard the train, and the Minaki Special is already an hour and a half late. But so is another train. Canadian Railways Super Contenental Express train is already late, pulling out of Winnipeg. It is going to Reddit, where the Minaki Special journey first started. The Super Continental is divided into two sections, number 2 and number 4. The already late Minaki Special already has orders to have both trains of the Super Continental pass. At 9:15 p.m., the Minaki Special pulls into siding at Vivian to let the first Super Contenental number 2, to pass. Then, at Elma, the crew is given yet new orders. This time, the Minaki Special and Continental number 4 would meet at Dugald. As this is going on, Super Contenental number 4 is already pulling out of Winnipeg and is heading down the main line to Dugald. And this train is made up of 15 cars, pulled of locomotive number 6040. The train consists of 15 cars, all of steel construction, a byway safer way to travel than that of the Minaki Special with its wooden coaches. John Gibson and Hanson Laurie are the crew of locomotive number 6040th. However, there is a unscheduled passenger aboard, Peter Penton, traveling on board the cab of 6040 because it is his night off, and as he thinks it's a quick way to travel back home. And so he is on board the train. Super Contenental Limited is traveling to Dugald. However, it will never reach its destination. The same thing goes to the Minaki Special, who is flying down the line down the Dugald, hoping to make up for lost time. 9:42 p.m. Super Contenental number 4 pulls into Dugald. The engineer stops her on the main line with the engine just beyond the station. The orders are this: wait until the Minaki Special moves on to the westbound track, then continue to Reddit with the other Super Contenental number 2. The plan is for the Minaki Special to travel on the westbound track, while the Super Contenental number 4 would travel on the eastbound track. This would not go to plan. Meanwhile, on the rapidly approaching Minaki Special, there are 2 red lights on the end of each station at Dugald. But it is now at red, meaning both trains have to stop to pick up new orders. However, after leaving Elma, there's a green light, meaning that the Minaki Special can move on to Winnipeg. When it takes the westbound switch, it will have a non-stop trip to Winnipeg. Normally, the eastbound brakeman would throw the switch. However, there isn't any time. The Minaki Special is already approaching the station at Dugald, and the Super Contenental number 4. Everything is peaceful in the cab of 6040 of the Super Contenental train. However, a whistle is heard. Coming round the bend, the crew of 6040 sees the Minaki Special approaching Dugald Station. The engineer Gibson of 6040 dims his light so the Minaki Special can see the switch. However, something doesn't go right. Instead of going to the siding, the train just keeps coming closer and closer and closer to the Super Contenental train. By golly, that train's gonna hit us, says the engineer Gibson of 6040, as the Minaki Special runs down the line towards the Super Contenental number 4 train. Suddenly, as soon as they realize it, the Minaki Special blows the whistle to warn them of the oncoming train. The brakes are put hard on. Passengers later recall hearing the tires screech of the train and feeling the train bump and jolt along the line as it approaches the Super Contenental. People grab onto each other, hoping for the worst will end. They come closer and closer to each other. Gibson, Laurie, and Penton get out of 6040's cab. They are just in time. The countryside is lit up in a blaze of fire as the Super Contenental No.4 is rammed by the Minaki Special. Flames erupt in the first coaches. The two baggage cars, the 9 wooden coaches, are all but ashes. People scream for help as people hear residents of the neighboring towns hear people scream for help. They rush to the scene, hoping there would be anything they could do. Many people are too late to be saved. Many rescuers pull out body parts. Peter Penton said the countryside lit up in a giant ball of fire, and what was worse was when he found it the next day. The fires blew on for hours. A fire erupted from the ruptured gas lines of the 2 locomotives as steam hissed. The fires gutted the coaches, and passengers were heard screaming in utter pain. But all they could do, those that left, could only stand back and watch as people died in the flames. The next day was a scene of utter destruction and chaos. The Minaki Special, also known as Extra Passenger 6001 West, had crashed into Super Contenental Train No.4. The 2 baggage cars and the 9 passenger cars, which were made of wood to be exact, were totally destroyed or telescoped in the accident. Miraculously, nobody was killed on the Super Contenental or the last 2 parlor cars, which were made of steel, of the Minaki Special. However, everyone that died included the engineer and fireman of the Minaki Special, and anyone who didn't survive the crash in those wooden coaches. Ian Manson and his father were lucky to be alive, that they had switched to go back to the 2 coaches at the back of the train, including those summer campers. If they didn't, they would be among the dead. Gilbert Rougeau would never get to see his daughters again. He had switched places for an ill trainman and was at the front of the train. It was likely he was among those missing, or presumed dead. And as for the engineer, even though he was supposed to be retiring in a couple of years, it didn't, and he instead died in a horrific train accident. Fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, entire families were wiped out in the crash. But how many people did die? In all, the Dugald accident claimed the lives of 31 men, women, and children. But the question was wondering, how could this have happened? And could it have been prevented? Why did so many vacationers die in such a horrific crash? An inquiry was held into what caused the wreck. To this day, we may never know why the Minaki Special did not take the westward siding and pass the Super Contenental No.4 train. However, what the inquiry did find out, and what they said was the cause of the accident, was the fact that the engineer and firemen of the Minaki Special disobeyed train orders and perceived that the green light meant it was an all-clear signal, when in fact it was not. And due to the Continental Super Contenental's locomotive number 6040 had dimmed its headlight, giving the Minaki Special no clear visibility of the stopped eastbound train. However, most of the blame was put on the westbound vacation train, including the fact that it had 9 wooden coaches built in the 1900s, and this happened in 1947 to be exact. Built in the early 1900s, these coaches were thought to have been useless and were thought to have been scrapped, but not in the case of those who were on the Minaki Special. Most of the passengers and crew that died were either from the engine or anywhere from the 2 baggage cars to the 9 wooden coaches. As I said before, no one was killed on those last 2 parlor cars, and miraculously, nobody was killed on the Super Contenental Express train. However, Peter Penton, Laurie, and Gibson, those who were on the locomotive 6040th, were lucky to be alive. Due to the fire, mostly anything that was made of wood, those 2 baggage cars and those 9 passenger cars were reduced to kindling. This is why today we never ride on trains, or any trains that are on the main line, not on tourist railways, that consist of wooden coaches, for the risk of a fire hazard. Both locomotives were ultimately destroyed in the crash, most likely 6040, which in fact had its cab crushed in. If those 3 people were still inside that cab, and Peter Penton was still inside that cab along with the engineer, Gibson, and the fireman, Laurie, they wouldn't be alive. Peter Penton could have been killed in a train that he wasn't supposed to be in, but was going on to get a quick trip home. It was a decision that nearly killed him, but miraculously, he survived. And so, in the end, the 1947 Dugald Train Accident was thought to have been caused due to the disobedience of train orders, and all responsibility was put solely on the Minaki Special. Wooden coaches, disobedience against train orders, these could have all been avoided, but they were not. The Minaki Special has never run again after this fateful and tragic accident that claimed 31 lives. And both locomotives were scrapped. And as I said before, the result of modern cars on these kind of trains would have limited the result of death. Take the Super Contenental for instance. Nobody was killed. The train received minimal damage, well, except its locomotive, but everyone survived that. And what about the Minaki's 2 parlor cars at the back of the train? Why did they have to be in the back of the train? Why not the front? We may never know why these fateful decisions were made. And still, why did the Minaki Special fail to take the westward siding and instead took the eastward track directly into the Super Contenental No.4? We may never know what the real cause of the accident was. 31 dead, 85 injured. That's the Dugald Train disaster. And so, I'll leave you this. When you're on a train, beware of your surroundings. And make sure that you're on a safe train that actually looks safe.